And now moving forward in time, Andrew Garfield and his rendition of Spider-Man, you know, you can criticize it all day, but in the end, Andrew Garfield himself, it just feels like got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
Because first of all, they rebooted that series way too early. No one was ready or asking for a new Spider-Man at that time.
Yeah, well, and the whole reason that that movie was made was just to keep the rights to Spider-Man because they were about to be up, and Sam Raimi wasn't going to be quick enough with Spider-Man 4. So they hired a much cheaper director and a lot, newer cast, and made it very quickly. And I think under the circumstances and what they had to do, especially rebooting a movie so quickly, what they had to not do, I think it actually came out pretty good considering. Because if you think about retelling the origin story so soon after the first one, there were certain plot points that they almost couldn't do.
It just,
couldn't touch.
like I said,
they had to retell
things
it.
Things were stacked against this series.
Yeah, and for how stacked against it the odds were, it actually isn't a bad movie. The areas of it are like clearly cut up. It's clear that the final edit was not what Mark Webb intended to be, because there are plot points in the movie that just are completely forgotten about. Characters just disappear midway through the movie.
Which one are you talking about?
The first one.
The first one.
Yeah. There's a character in the movie, I can't remember his name, but it's who the lizard's going after in the bridge scene. Mm-hmm. After the bridge scene, he's never seen again.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that.
But if you watch he's in the deleted scenes. There's a scene where he dies in the deleted scenes. I'm like, how do you delete that scene?
Yeah, it's it's a smaller topic because there's only 2 of these movies got made. And less than going after both movies and trying to break down each movie individually, I think you can apply a lot of the same problems from each movie to both movies. You know, like a lot of what plagued the first one was only worse in the second one.
Yeah.
And, I originally really did not like the first Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movie. And I'm a fan of Garfield himself as an actor. And I even, looking back at it now, I don't mind his interpretation of Spider-Man. But I was really not a fan of the movie. I just did not enjoy that movie. Did not work for me on any level. The first one did. And then moving into the second one, the second one kind of gets railed at more, and it had even more production problems and more studio struggles, and it really started to fall apart. But I think the second one was actually where it started to gain some momentum if they had been able to execute. Like the second one actually had all the ideas. I thought it actually had a lot more of an interesting direction than the first one did. So it was really sad that it fizzled in the way that it did, because I really liked where they wanted to go with like Harry and the Green Goblin. And if you look at the second one, it has a lot of good moments too. And I mean,
that's the thing about both those movies is that what Mark Webb to me really brought to the table, and I really wish that he would have been able to explore more, was just the human moments and the like human connection with Peter Parker and all the characters surrounding him. Mm-hmm. Like there's in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, like sandwiched in between these like just terrible moments and these like really clunky storytelling moments, you've got this scene between Andrew Garfield and Sally Field that is just like Oscar worthy moments of acting, and it's incredible. And you're just like, how is this stuck in the middle of this complete mess of a movie?
And this point that I'm about to make actually kind of relates to that in a way, in that this is something that was in the Tobey Maguire's version of Spider-Man as well. But like when you talk about set pieces with Spider-Man, and obviously Marvel's going to be known, like if you move forward to Tom Holland, they're going to be known for their set pieces and their action and all their high budget stuff. But even still, not much of what Tom Holland has done has impressed me visually in the way that both Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man did. Like looking at the climax scenes of Garfield's second Spider-Man movie, like the clock tower scene where he's chasing after not MJ, Gwen. It's not like such a normie. Gwen, yeah, I knew that. But when he's like diving after her, and then like when she snaps and dies, and the scene following it, like from the action set piece, the creativity, the way it was shot and performed, and then the actual acting on his part, the death scene was gorgeous. Yeah. And it was so sad. And honestly, that scene at that point in time, like, did so much for me in regards to almost making me forget the problems that the movie had before. You know, it's like I wasn't worried about Electro anymore. Yeah. Like I thought that when Harry started to take over and that those parts started to come into play, like it got a good amount of momentum.
Yeah, there's parts of both those movies that are so good that they make you forget about how much of a mess really just the superhero side of the movie is. Because I feel like that's really where those movies fell apart, was actually when you got into the superhero angle of it. Mm-hmm. Like I think a lot of the first Amazing Spider-Man movie works up until you get the villain and the like his plot and that side of the story. A lot of the character stuff was really good in those movies. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you were mentioning about the set pieces is that those two movies, more than Tom Holland Spider-Man and more than Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, captured like the weight and physicality of Spider-Man. When he was swinging, it really felt like he was swinging. And even in Sam Raimi's movies, like it looked fine, but it kind of looked like he was floating when he was swinging. And in Tom Holland Spider-Man, I don't get how like they thought that his swinging looked okay in that movie. I mean, he doesn't do a whole lot of swinging, but the end of Far From Home, when he's swinging, it just looks so cartoony.
I've just always thought they just do whatever they wanted with him, like in the physics, like in those movies.
Garfield Spider-Man, like the effects on him swinging were just incredible. And in the first movie, they kind of ditched it in the second movie, but in the first movie, there were actually moments where they filmed it practically, like it was actually a guy swinging, and they look really good.
Yeah, it's just it seems like Garfield's rendition of Spider-Man really just got the short end of the stick. There were so many good ideas to it, both from the director as well as what Garfield brought to the table. It just felt like it was so muddled by so many different circumstances. Another thing that I want to briefly touch on is the difference in portrayal of Spider-Man, because there was a lot of talk at the time, you know, and this was something that initially turned me off, was I was like, this guy is way too cool to be Spider-Man. You know, they were like this skateboard gamer type of Spider-Man. Which really was jarring, going from Tobey Maguire's, you know, kind of nerdy photographer type of thing. Like it was always unbelievable. And this is something that the movie didn't do well, was I liked his actual portrayal of it was fine, but the movie itself didn't portray him very well. In that they were like, oh yeah, he's a dork. He doesn't have friends. Yeah. And then it's just like, really? This guy doesn't have friends. And then he's over here being like, so like smooth and cute with like Gwen Stacy, like the hottest girl around, and he's just getting this girl, and like it was so hard to believe that he was like this loser.
There's two things that I want to give the first Amazing Spider-Man movie credit for, because they're the two moments that I loved in that movie. Was that they didn't play the whole he's got to keep his identity secret from his girlfriend.
Yeah, that
was genuinely subversive and interesting. And also one thing that they changed from the original movies and a lot of the comic book interpretations of it is that he became Spider-Man to get revenge on the guy that killed Uncle Ben. And it's only in the scene where he saves all the people on the bridge where he realizes like basically his error, and that he can use it to help people. And that scene's really great, and it's like the first time you hear like the actual Spider-Man theme of the movie, and it's a really great scene. So yeah, those are two moments that I feel like don't get credit in those movies because there's so much else.
That alone wraps up the sentiment around those movies that I feel like you and I both kind of agree on, is that like there were sparks and little hints of genius in that iteration of Spider-Man. And it's honestly, it's really just sad to me. Like, you know, you could say that it's sad what happened to Sam Raimi's third Spider-Man and where it was going, but like I think it's the most tragic aspect of the Spider-Man universe. It was what happened to those movies, because I think they actually had something that they could have built on, and it could have been truly great, and something that could have made it so that we never saw Tom Holland Spider-Man.